Sunil, thank you so much for joining us today. As we start, can you talk a little bit about your current role and what's in your purview?
Sure. So currently, I'm the Chief Information Security Officer here
Mhm.
at Glean.
Mhm.
Glean is a enterprise search and a knowledge management software. Think about it as Google for your enterprise, where through a single interface, you can search all the
Mhm.
data sources within an enterprise, be it Slack, be it G Suite, Office 365, Jira, what have
Mhm.
you, and also including your on-prem data sources. So a single interface for all your enterprise data.
And what's in your purview, meaning what kind of teams are reporting to you?
Yeah, responsible for all aspects of security.
Mhm.
So which would be corporate security at one end, application security, infrastructure security, compliance,
Mhm.
and also pretty unique, something that I always insist when I take up this role is also have a part of product security. What I mean
Mhm.
by product security is developing security products. So, that is kind of unique to me. My started as a security engineer where I used to develop security software. And I did that for a good 15 years.
Mhm.
And when I decided to kind of change sides, come on this side where I'm more of a consumer of security software rather than a producer, I just
Mhm.
didn't want to lose my edge of
Mhm.
creating security software. So every time I take on a CISO role or a head of security role, I make sure that security is a very important component. Plus, it is not just a cost center, but also a revenue generator.
Mhm. Interesting. So, is it part of the offering to the clients? So essentially, you're creating security products that become part of the product that your clients are paying for.
Exactly. So,
Interesting.
in addition to enterprise search, one thing that we also do, just because we are connected to all the various data sources, the obvious thing that we do is allow our customers to detect sensitive content. If they have shared, their customers' PII in a Slack channel,
Hmm.
because we are already indexing all that information to provide them with the search. For us, it's relatively easy
Hmm.
for us to search for sensitive content, be it PII, PHI, or any other sensitive content, and then bubble it up to the security admin so that they can take the next step of actually, preventing it, deleting it, whatever be the next steps.
Certainly. Interesting. And you mentioned you in the past you worked for quite some time developing security products. If we kind of take a step further back, how did you get into cybersecurity space? What's kind of what was it trajectory? Where did it start?
Yeah, so started my career as a software engineer way back, mid 90s. I'm definitely dating myself. And then, you know, one thing I always liked was, cryptography and the challenges that come with developing a security software. With generic software development, not to say anything bad about it, you generally tend to focus on the happy parts. With security software, you definitely focus on the happy part, but you also are constantly thinking that how would the attacker try to subvert your system? And that challenge, really excited me. So, and that's when, I decided to more focus on companies that are developing security software. Started my career with a lot of doing PKI, public key infrastructure and cryptography
Hmm.
initially, and then slowly, moved through the entire stack. I've done layer 2 firewalls, in within the Linux kernel, and
Hmm.
also done web application security in the terms of developing software as to how do you protect yourself. Even if you have vulnerable web application, how can you protect yourself? So kind of done the entire spectrum of things. And it is during this development process where, my customers would often be CIOs and CISOs. And, in that interaction, I would always try to put myself in their shoe as to what are the biggest challenges they need to solve, what kind of solution they're looking for. And, while doing that during, my first 15 years of my career, I developed a good appreciation for their work. And that's where in the last 5 to 7 years, I've kind of come onto the other side that, hey, I do understand everything that they have to go through. Why not, I try to tackle that problem myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And well, and to your point, it's interesting that so basically you went from being a software engineer to developing cybersecurity products to being not only the developer but also consumer of cybersecurity. I mean, I'm sure you deal with cybersecurity vendors as well. So you've seen kind of how the industry evolved and developed over time, and obviously it's clear that it just as a concept it's exploded in its importance in a way that now everyone is aware from high level board of directors, C-level executives, all the way to consumers. I think it's top of mind for a lot more people than it used to be. I think maybe just because of technologies playing such a substantially bigger part in all our lives and also powering enterprises in a much more profound way than was the case 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And as a result, the threats exploded as well. I think as a result, a lot more people are looking to either switch from technology to cybersecurity, or maybe even kind of their more junior roles, even students looking at the space and figuring out if they want to make a career out of this. From your vantage point and with your experience, what do you recommend? What are the top 3 things a more junior professional or a student at a college should focus on to set them up for success in cybersecurity as a practitioner?
So one thing, I would say is security, it's a mindset. So, they should get into cybersecurity, not because it is cool, not because there's job safety, but because they like the mindset of someone who likes to be on the defensive, trying to protect the critical infrastructure from the bad guys, and always be thinking 2 steps ahead as to how the steps that they're taking could potentially be subverted. So if they think that they have that mindset, then those individuals will do really well in cybersecurity. And we need many of those. And once they have decided that that is a challenge that they want to take on and spend decent amount of their career doing that, then one place that I always tell them that a good way to get started is there are many bug bounty platforms. Sign up for one of those. Try to see that can you play the role of an attacker, and once you find a vulnerability, actually make a recommendation as to how to defend against that attack that you just exploited. Can you play both the sides of the coin? If you think you can do that effectively, then you have a pretty good career in cybersecurity.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a number of companies. I think BugCrowd is one of them. HackerOne. There's a handful of them that kind of it's a community, but also a way for companies to sign themselves up for a program like this, and do so in a fairly safe way without opening them up to
Absolutely
actions less than friendly. I think it's a great suggestion. So going back to vendors, you've seen both the cybersecurity vendor side and now you as a practitioner. I think, as you mentioned, you saw both sides of the coin. Every time we bring the subject of vendors, often it evokes a very visceral reaction. Sometimes CISOs, they say, well, I don't use email, I only use Slack. My email does exist, but I never open it because it's just so overrun with solicitations from vendors. Someone else we talked to said, my phone is on silent from Monday morning until Friday afternoon. My phone is on silent because it's just impossible to get any work done. I constantly get calls. So again, you've seen both sides of the coin. What are some of the ways you think in kind of your last time, 6 months, maybe a year, what are some of the ways that cybersecurity vendors surprise you on a positive side? And what some of the pet peeves? What are some of the ways that they're most um, too aggressive and too overwhelming in terms of how they approach practitioners, you think?
Yeah, so I would say I'll start with the second part of your question. And I agree with everything the other CISOs have said. And I unfortunately have to do similar things. I just pretty much never pick up my phone 8 to 5 or, look at my emails very much for the same reasons. And I would say, most of the vendors, the way they're approaching is they have some, a solution to sell, and they're so focused on their own solution um, that they're forgetting that what's the top of mind issue for the person on the other side, for the CISO. So, and that is, I do work with some vendors. I do try to help them out because, as I said, I have been on the other side. And many a times they miss the mark. They are so busy thinking about how great a solution that they have developed that they forget, what is it that the CISO actually needs to make sure that they can keep things secure. So I do work with vendors, try to tell them that, this is how these are the features that I would like in their product, and these are the things that they should position. These are the things they should focus on. Many of the products, they might be the best products. If it requires me to spend a month or 2 months just to do a POC, it's quite unlikely because coming from my point, I do not know about that vendor. I do not know what they can do. I'm not ready to commit 1 month or 2 months of my engineers' resources. The time to value is what they got to focus on. So I do work with the vendors trying to nudge them in a direction that would make them a little bit more palatable to potential consumers like myself when they go knocking on someone else's door.
Interesting. Interesting. And I guess on the other side, what are some of the ways that vendors kind of amazed and delighted you in the last 6 months, maybe to a year? What some of the things that they event, without naming names, you don't have to name who they were, but what are some of the ways they approached you that you thought was very thoughtful?
Yeah, and I would say, as you know, in the security industry, there's been a big proliferation. There are many, many tools out there. There's a tool for every small security problem. And what has happened is now a CISO has deployed n number of tools. None of those tools work together very well. And each one of them have their own dashboard. I would say the last couple of years, I have started seeing vendors who are just not focusing on point products. You deploy a product. I came across a vendor where I could deploy the product. Within half an hour, I could start seeing a value, and they replaced 6 or 7 different vendors within my portfolio. So I would say tool consolidation is a big thing that many of the vendors should start focusing on. And they may not be the best of breed in everything that they do, but if they are 80%, 90% there, and if they can take care of 5 to 10 tools that I'm already using, and over a period they keep on improving, I would say that's music to my ears.
Yeah, because you'll be looking at one dashboard instead of 5 or 6.
Exactly. And not everyone should insist on having their own dashboard, because eventually, we in the security industry, we need to come up with a mechanism where, a data from one security tool can be seamlessly shared with another security tool. We need to standardize on the contracts that each of the security tool need to confirm to a contract, so that eventually we can consolidate all the data into a single platform and get a lot more meaning out of it, and look at one dashboard versus n number of dashboards.
Certainly. And is it going to be done through APIs so that different solutions can be reconfigured like Lego blocks? You can pick and choose, but all of them should be on some sort of one format, one protocol that allows them to talk to each other in secure ways. Is that the future that
Yeah,
you?
my ideal state would be through standardized APIs and standardized schemas, where each of the product is required to produce and consume from each other. So exactly as you said, as Lego blocks, so that CISO can put all of them together and it works cohesively, which is not happening right now. We have, I would say, some solutions where you can take all the data and put it into a SIM, but that operates at a log level. And again, then you're relying on the SIM to make sense out of all the data, that is all the logs that are coming in. But there's no formalized process. And we in the security industry, we got to do that.
I understand. Sounds like an opportunity for someone to consolidate. And it's interesting to see what's happening now, because it's certainly, there are certainly some headwinds in terms of the economy and the financial markets. It will be interesting to see in the remainder of the year how those unicorn startups are going to fare in this kind of environment, and whether or not larger and highly acquisitive companies like Palo Alto Networks or Fortinet or Checkpoint, if they will take advantage of the times, I guess, and scoop up some of those startups and come up, as you said, with a more unified dashboard, bringing a lot of different offerings under kind of one umbrella. I think it remains to be seen, obviously, but it's one theme that I wonder how it's going to play out. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think, as I said, tool consolidation is top of mind. A lot of the big security companies will acquire, the companies where they might have potentially have gaps. However, I just want to reiterate that point. That does not obviate the need that, if I have Palo Alto, that I might not have some offering from Checkpoint. I might still have it. So the burden is still onto those big security companies to make sure that they do interoperate well with each other.
Certainly. No, it makes a lot of sense. So switching back to bad guys, it seems like every now and then there is kind of a new theme, scare probably not the right term, but new top of mind threat. And it seems like ransomware is top of mind right now, among a few others. Imagine you have a crystal ball and you can see into the future. And so 12 months from now, what are the top 3 cybersecurity challenges you think will be top of mind for CISOs?
I would say, with all the advancements that are happening, especially around generative AI, you must have heard about many of those. There are many, many good use cases. Unfortunately, bad actors also would take advantage of all the advancements. Now, I'm afraid, the script kiddies will use things like ChatGPT or Copilot to actually develop very pointed attacks. So yes, ransomware, phishing, all those attacks, we'll see more of those, more so because of the hybrid work environment. Now they will become even more difficult to track because, every bad actor out there now has the tools to create very dedicated spear phishing campaign. And, gone are the days when, you can look at the English and say, hey, this person seems to be from Nigeria, trying to carry out a phishing attack, because now that person has access to all the tools that you and I have to compose a pretty nice paragraph, more targeted towards Misha. So that's one class of attacks that I would say we'll see more of. Similarly, even malware, because of ability to create codes so much faster, we will see many of those. So all the signature-based solutions, all the antivirus, anti-malware, those will pretty much become obsolete, and more behavioral-based solution will become more prevalent in order to protect.
Interesting. It seems like, well, the 2 things I'm realizing about cybersecurity: one, it's an ever-changing landscape and ever-moving target, and also it's a team sport. So it's obviously coordinating with government authorities. I know there are certain agencies that are very active in sharing information about some of the threats that they see with corporations, and some associations, industry associations as well. Well, Afinia, one of the mandates is to bring together cybersecurity professionals for various purposes, career networking and professional networking as well. And obviously, there is the weekly email newsletter, and there is a membership website. We're recently in the process of launching the Slack channel, and some of our initiatives are successful and we get good response and good traction. Others a little bit less so. So from your perspective, what are some of the things that you think we're doing well and where you think we can improve?
So I have looked at some of the newsletters. I have seen, some of the videos of other CISOs that you do include. I did view some of them because I like to, as you said, professionally network, try to see what other CISOs are thinking, what's top of mind. As you said, it is a team sport. The bad actors are working together. You can go to the dark web and buy an SDK, which carries out the most sophisticated attack for less than 5K. The bad actors are working together. Now it's the time for all the good guys to come together and work together and share the intel. That's one thing. Other thing is I'm a big believer in crowdsourcing. Again, we need all the good guys to come together. That's why I mentioned the bug bounty program and those platforms where now the good guys can help improve the security of each and every company out there. And together we got to fight against the bad guys, because this is not a single company thing.
Certainly. But in terms of specific ways for Afinia to enable that, do you think, what kind of formats you think will be more successful in accomplishing this goal? Do you think we should host more face-to-face local events, which we kind of started late last year? Do you think it will be Slack channel? Do you think it will be Zoom calls focused on specific areas, whether it's social engineering or ransomware or zero trust or what have you? What are your thoughts on?
I would say pretty much all of them. Everything would have value. Bring all the security professionals together in an informal environment where people can talk about their top of mind issues. They can talk about how they are actually solving them, where this information could be exchanged. Slack channels where, issues when they come up, every day I have to tackle some unique problem that I have not tackled before. I am part of certain CISO networks where I do reach out to the broader network, posing the questions and seeking feedback. More of that would definitely be valuable for me. Slack channel where all the security professionals, all the CISOs could be there. And, we could just have, open-ended questions and discussions. And I would say if you guys do some due diligence on vendors, as you know, everyone gets pinged by many, many vendors. And every time you got to spend a lot of effort. If you are looking for a solution for a particular problem, there are N vendors. And out of N vendors, you at least choose 5 that you would go through the due diligence. If there is already a list of, vendors that have been vetted by your peer community that you trust, and that can be shared, that would have immense value.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think obviously, well, there's Gartner with Magic Quadrants, there is G2 Crowd with a different model of sourcing their insights with, I get mixed reviews. I hear mixed reviews about them. But I think what you mentioned actually makes a lot of sense, but it's also contextual, right? So what is important and vital for Citigroup, the needs of an organization the size of Bank of America or Citigroup may be very different versus local credit union. Both are in financial services. Both are dealing with personally identifiable information and financial records and money, just at different scale. So as a vendor or solution that will be appropriate for Citigroup, maybe not appropriate for a credit union. So I think all those recommendations will need to be context aware. So a forum where you can say, hey, I'm this size organization, this industry, I'm trying to narrow down the universe of vendors in particular solution, let's say user training or email protection. Help me identify 5 I need to talk to, and tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly about those 5. Hearing from someone who's a peer of someone, an organization of similar size, similar industry, hearing from an executive who has already gone through those steps, I think will be valuable, because not only will be providing insights about vendors, but also be very contextual, relevant to that person's particular circumstances and organization.
Correct. And one key part that you mentioned was definitely someone the same size, a peer, but someone who actually can provide real feedback. Not that someone has just looked at the slideware or the marketing material, but they've actually deployed it and have real world experience with that particular product.
Certainly.
And those are the kind of insights that, would be helpful for me.
Certainly. Well, Sunil, I appreciate your feedback, because we're kind of constantly trying to listen to the community and see what makes sense, because also, obviously, we don't want to create something that no one uses, because it would be wasteful. We don't want to waste everyone's attention and our resources. So obviously, we want to put something out that's valuable, that enables members to connect and share. So would love to get your feedback on some of the new initiatives and on the Slack channel, and how to structure it in a way that members will find it useful. So if it's okay, I'd love to reach out separately, I guess, and get, if there are specific product questions, I'd love to get your feedback.
Absolutely.
I know we're coming up on time. Last couple of questions. We are considering hosting informal or maybe more formal events at RSA that's coming up in April in San Francisco, and potentially Black Hat that's usually in August in Las Vegas. Are you attending any large-scale conferences, or you prefer to use your personal network?
Yeah, no, so I do plan to attend RSA. I'm in Bay Area, so RSA conference is definitely something quite reachable. And I haven't made my plans yet for Black Hat, but I will definitely look it up.
Excellent. Well, I certainly hope we'll connect face-to-face at RSA, because that's the one we're definitely going to. I know, again, we're coming up on time, Sunil. Thank you so much for taking time for this. Where can our listeners find you? Are you on LinkedIn, Twitter? What's the best mode to reach out?
LinkedIn.
Excellent. Sunil, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle.